Hello, and welcome back to the fastest growing show on the internet. That is a lie. But we're back with finding new films. It is episode 22. Today is May the 28th. And I have my dad, and he's back.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, man?
I'm your Regis.
Yeah. We had a little bit of a mishap scheduling wise. Want to say congrats to Zach for making the leap. Zach with a D, with a C, with a K, with a D was supposed to be on today, but he moved out to Los Angeles to go pursue, bigger, better dreams. So shout out to him and hope everything works out for you, brother. We have Dad on though in the interim. To talk about Life of Brian from 1979, and that was his pick. It's supposed to be a few weeks from now, but we bumped it up. Also, through much convincing, took a lot. I had to dip into my pockets a little bit for this one.
Oh, you're mentioning this now? Okay.
I got the man and his co-host, best friend. I'm not gonna say anything too crazy, but I may have something in the works. Yeah.
Well, I guess this will be announced at first. I mean, I know people have been asking us forever, just on and on about it, but we're still amazed that after all this time that there's still an audience and people are still interested. So we're teaming up again. And we were on the phone one night not too long ago, and it was like these phone conversations that we have, because it can be a while between catching up. It's like a podcast. We're like any question the audience would want to know about what's going on in our lives. It's going on there. So it's like they want a podcast. We're having a podcast. Let's just record it and do it. So It's actually going to happen. So Greg and Jeff, Give the Hi-Hat is the name of the podcast, and we're supposed to record our first episode on Tuesday, and should be released sometime later that week. Well, you should know. You're producing. What's the release date? What's the name of the week?
This is total shock news to me. What was the day?
Well, we record on Tuesday.
What day?
Saturday. Saturday, is that okay?
Whatever.
What day do you release?
Hey, it's your show, right?
Actually,
a small cog in the machine on this one. Hey, this is my show. We're on my show right now. That's your show.
Well, what day does this show release?
This is coming out on Friday. Taking a look at it, it should come out next week, so that's Friday the 2nd.
So maybe we should do Sunday release days.
Probably.
That makes sense.
Sunday. So look out for it this upcoming Sunday. So yeah, on the Q Crew Podcast Network. You can find it on Spotify, any of the podcasting platforms. We'll get it up there as soon as we can. Spotify will definitely be the most easy, so you'll see it there first. And YouTube. But moving forward with the rest of the streaming platforms, it may take a second, but we'll definitely let you know.
And just a hint, and I'm just going to drop a hint this time. There's nothing to announce yet, but there's also additional content on the horizon, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes.
So just stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Your one place stop for entertainment.
Honestly, if you just follow the Q Crew Productions Instagram, it's going to keep the umbrella all tight under one brand. So if you want to follow the individual shows' Instagrams, be free to do so, obviously. But if you want to key in on those specific shows, definitely follow their respective Instagrams. But the one big umbrella Q Crew Instagram should be the one that brings you like the most general news about everything.
Yeah. So, and remember to like and subscribe, and so it'll always be in your...
Exactly, right? So right there ready for you. Mm-hmm. They'll be sending you notifications if you've got them on, which if you're my generation, you probably don't. but nevertheless.
Oh, and leave your comments, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, we love responding. But that is enough about the future. We need
Enough
to
of
deal
that
with the
shit.
present. That's enough about the future. We need to deal with the present. What was your motivation behind the Life of Brian?
That's a good question. You know, I think more than anything is that, you know, I've seen the end of the movie. Unfortunately, it's like an iconic scene from a Monty Python movie, but I've never seen the rest of it. I've seen maybe a bit or piece here and there along the years, but never really watched the movie. You know, huge Holy Grail fan and Monty Python, the show itself. And so I know we had talked about neither one of us had seen that before and like another Monty Python stuff and just always wanted to watch it. So we had done two really serious films before, and I thought we would do a comedy, something lighthearted to dive into. So why not?
Sure. Yeah. We had also spoken about maybe doing The Last Temptation of Christ. I feel like that this may be like the much more tame and grounded version of that timeline. We may still get into The Last Temptation of Christ because we both love Scorsese, nevertheless.
And I'm like kind of like, I mean, I'm not like a biblical scholar or anything to that degree, but I do love biblical history and you know the stories that go along with it, and
also love comedy though.
Yeah, exactly. And though, you know, it's such a taboo subject, not that I think that it deserves to be.
Right.
I can understand how some people take it so seriously that they can have no sense of humor about their spirituality. But that's neither here nor there. We'll get into that later.
Yeah. Yeah. And this one is this movie got banned in a few places. It's been given an X rating in a few places. It's not deserving, really, I don't think, of either of those. When you've considered how comedy has evolved over time, I don't think that it's warranted. And yeah, I don't know. This movie could get made today, like, very easily.
Oh, yeah.
People would celebrate it for being made. So,
well, I think it would be tame in comparison to how they would make it today.
I don't know, man. There was a movie 2, maybe 3 years ago. It was quite literally just like Satanists on screen in a comedy, and they were like being very vitriolic towards like Christianity in general. Not saying that's not warranted, but at the same time, it's like I don't know. I feel like this movie could very easily be made the same exact way that it was made. I mean, there's even a transgender storyline.
Oh yeah, I think.
And it's treated, and it's not even, it's not mocked. I mean, it is, but by a character who is also played to be a dumbass. And so, it makes commentary in that way too. And I don't know if you picked up, but like after that character mentions that they're transgender, they like get called like the one guy that's like accepting of it calls him Loretta later on in the movie, and then calls him she later on in the movie as well.
I didn't notice that.
Even though like no cosmetic changes had really been made to the character, he just kind of offhand mentions that he'd wanted to be a woman, and he's like,
"To be a girl."
And but the other guy is like so keen on like making sure he's inclusive with his speech and stuff. I thought that was really interesting, and I feel like it's like one of the more subtle like things in the movie. But that's a thoughts. That's a thoughts thing. We need to do the credits in the plot synopsis. So I'm gonna do that really quick. I'm not about to name all these people. I'm gonna name all these people. So Life of Brian was released in 1979. Distributed by the three-headed monster of Warner Brothers, 20th Century Fox, and Sony Pictures. Insane. Whoever gets that combo, that trio, to work together on anything. Runtime was 94 minutes, right over an hour and a half. And the writers of this film were John Cleese, Eric Idle, Terry Jones, Graham Chapman, Michael Palin, and Terry Gilliam, also known as the Monty Python. Directed by Terry Jones solely. This film was edited by Julian Doyle. The music was done by Jeffrey Burgin, spelled Goffrey, so Geoffrey. Virgin.
Geoff.
Director of photography for this film was Peter Bizet.
Bijou. I think it is.
Bijou. There you go. And then the stars of this film was all of the writers, so the entire cast of Monty Python, and tacked on to the end is Terrence Baylor and Carol Cleveland. And the plot is as follows. Brian Cohen is born in the stable next door to the one in which Jesus is born, which initially confuses the three wise men who come to praise the future king of the Jews. Brian later grows into an idealistic young man who resents the continuing Roman occupation of Judea. While listening to Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, Brian becomes infatuated with an attractive young rebel named Judith. His desire for her and her hatred for the Romans, further exaggerated by his mother revealing that Brian himself was half Roman, inspire him to join the, quote, People's Front of Judea, unquote, also known as the PFJ. Of one of many factions, fractious and bickering independent movements that spend more time fighting each other than they do the Romans. To prove himself, Brian is tasked by the PFJ to paint slogans on the Roman governor Pilate's palace, but is interrupted by a Roman officer. The officer is, however, more concerned with Brian's appalling grammar, and after correcting the slogan to Romani ite domum, orders him to write it 100 times. The next morning, Brian has finished writing it out, and subsequently is chased away by a separate patrol of legionnaires, unaware that Brian's act of vandalism has actually been ordered by the centurions, threatening death. He then participates in an abortive attempt by the PFJ to kidnap Pilate's wife, but is captured by the palace guards. Escaping when the guards suffer paroxysms of laughter at Pilate's speech impediment and his obliviousness to the hilarious names of his friends, Biggest Dickus and Incontinentia Buttocks. Brian winds up on a spaceship driven by aliens before finding himself once back to Earth, trying to blend in among prophets who are preaching in a busy plaza repeating fragments of Jesus' sermons. He stops his sermon mid-sentence when some Roman soldiers depart, leaving his small but intrigued audience demanding to know more. Brian grows frantic when people start to follow him to the mountains, and there they declare him to be the Messiah. After spending the night in bed with Judith, Brian is still naked, discovers an enormous crowd assembled outside his mother's house. Her attempts at dispersing the crowd are rebuffed, so she consents to Brian addressing them. He urges them to think for themselves, but they parrot his words as doctrine. The PFJ seeks to exploit Brian's celebrity status by having him minister to a thronging crowd of followers demanding miracle cures. Brian sneaks out the back, only to be captured by the Romans and sentenced to crucifixion. In celebration of Passover, a crowd has assembled outside the palace of Pilate, who offers to pardon a prisoner of their choice. The crowd shouts their name containing the letter R, mocking Pilate's speech impediment. Eventually, Judith appears to the crowd and calls for the release of Brian, which then the crowd echoes, and Pilate agrees to release Brian. His order eventually is related to the guards, but in the scene that parodies the climax of the film Spartacus, various crucified people all claim to be Brian so that they can be freed, and the wrong man is released. Other opportunities for reprieve for Brian are denied as the PFJ, and then Judith reprays him for his martyrdom, while his mother expresses regret for having raised him. Hope is renewed when a crack suicide squad from the Judean People's Front charges and prompts the Roman soldiers to flee. However, the squad commits mass suicide as a form of political protest, condemned to a slow and painful death. Brian finds his spirits lifted when fellow sufferers who cheerfully sing, quote, always look on the bright side of life. Do-do, 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 do-do. We're going to get copyrighted out our ass for that one. But that is the life of Brian. I'll read the themes really quick. I legitimately have 5. I'm not even joking. Irony, absurdism, religions, their virtues and hypocrisies, social commentary, and the pitfalls of a follower, quote-unquote, mindset. And that's it. I think that's it. I really think that's the only thing this movie has to say.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a comedy. Yeah.
Social commentary is more than anything, but, yeah. Any thoughts?
Yeah, one of the things is like I had always been forewarned about like how,
Brutal and
brutal this movie is, making fun of Christianity. And I mean, I thought it was done very lightly and very light touch. And so I don't see that at all, how anybody could possibly really get offended from this movie unless you're just a 100% literalist. But yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with that it has moments where it does seem like it's drag, or like bits are
especially
taking on too long.
in a 90-minute frame too.
Yeah, it just seems like it was kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say slapped together, but like I think that they like were scared to really push some buttons further than they could.
That, and I mean, I did
Yeah.
mention the trio of production companies.
Yeah.
Perhaps they're
Cut
dipping
stuff,
in and
yeah.
stuff and being like, "That's too much. You're going too
And you
far."
have to, and maybe they had to extend some parts that,
Yeah.
So you never know. But
You
I mean,
never know.
it's classic Monty Python. The ironies and then the conversations, the absurdity of it. You can't help but not like watch and be amused and laugh and giggle and enjoy your little nerdy sense of humor that you have. So I thought it was great in that point, from that sense. And it's a template, just like we were talking earlier about Airplane. It's a template movie for, like, no one had ever really attempted this kind of blatant parody of organized religion. Not from a comedic standpoint, anyway.
I mean, blatant parody in general, but then like nobody's ever taken the shit out of. We watched him. Me and him together watched a video, one of those GQ break down your most iconic characters videos, and Eric Idle was on there talking about the life of Brian, and had mentioned about how this movie really comes from like an offhand remark he had made to a journalist, where they asked, "What's your next film?" And he was like, "Jesus Christ, the lust for
the lust for power,
the lust for power, the lust for passion," or something like that. So it was genuinely, this film started as like just a joke, and then Eric Idle says John Cleese came to him and was like, that's actually kind of profound. Nobody's ever trying to take the piss out of Christianity or religion like that. So it kind of feels that way with some of the way that the scenes get extended for longer than they really should be. The biggest dickest scene is it's a lot. It's too much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just for all fairness to explain, I mean, it's the governor, or whatever his name is, Pilate, is there, and Pontius Pilate, and he's just mentioning the names of his friends, and one of them happens to be Biggest Dickus, and it just, and his guards are laughing at it, or snarking the smart.
They don't want to show him that they're laughing.
Yeah.
Because obviously they're gonna get in trouble.
I mean, it's obviously like, nerdy type childish toilet humor, but it just like, wow, really? I feel like I'm taking your thunder on the observation because you mentioned it.
No, you just kind of feel like, damn, is this really like worthy of being 3.5 minutes long? It's like when you're watching an SNL skit on YouTube and you're like, ooh, or you see the thumbnail and the thumbnail has 5 minutes on it, and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Are they really gonna land they're not, are they, there's no way they land the plane on this one. There's just no way. And it's very few that they actually do. SNL at least. But like, within this movie, there's like 2 or 3 bits where you're like, right. This could have ended like a minute ago, and it's not funny anymore. But, that's just probably our subjective taste. I really enjoyed the quoting lines. This is a quote that I'm about to read. It is like, what sign is he? Like at the very beginning, where she's talking, the mom, quote unquote, is talking to the 3 wise men, and she asks what sign he is, and they go, well, he's Capricorn. And I was like, well, what do they do? And he goes, he's the son of God, he's the king of the Jews. And he goes, and that's Capricorn, is it?
Yeah, like all Capricorns are the son of God, not just her.
She goes, no, just this one. And he goes, oh yeah, I was gonna say that'd be a lot of them. there's a lot of like, and I guess if it's more just like British humor of just like everything is just disagreement. You know what I mean? Like everything is just a petty argument.
Or could be questioned. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just quite small petty observations, and it's never. I don't want to say it's nothing of substance because they definitely talk about some substantive things in this, but
Well, one of my favorite parts of that early were the infant Brian beside the infant Jesus when the wise men went
And
to
they
see
realized
Brian erroneously first.
yeah.
They went to the wrong place.
And then they realize,
And his mom goes, what is myrrh?
yeah,
And he's like, it's an ointment.
it's a balm.
Yeah, a balm. And it's like, what, you know, and then when
You shouldn't have a balm near him.
when they were leaving, she goes, do come again, even though that
Do come again.
it's like, bring gifts again and then gold, but not so much the myrrh next time.
Next time, please.
That's one of my favorite scenes. That and then the like, we'll maybe get into that later. Can I tell you one of my favorite scenes of the movie is when Jesus is giving the Sermon on the Mount, and him and his mom are out towards the back of the crowd,
So they
can't,
stoning.
and they want to go to the stoning instead, but they're so far back that they can't really hear what he's saying, and like people in the back are like heckling Jesus, going, "Speak up, we can't hear you," and then a fight breaks out in the crowd in the back. Oh, and and none of this is ever seen or talked about like in history, but I mean, you can clearly see like how like people with bad seats or bad views get into argument and the ruckus breaks. I mean, it's just why not? I mean, it happened.
Yeah, it's funny. That was really well done, and him just being like them both being just like petulant children toward each other and being like, "Oh, big nose," you know. That was the whole beef is him calling him big nose too much.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was awesome. I thought that was it's so real too. But I thought it was awesome in yeah. I thought the opening shot of
I'll slug you one.
All right, I warned you now. I'm gonna punch you in the face. I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. Yeah, the opening shot has no business being as pretty as it does, or as it is. That shot with all the stars and stuff, and they've got like the wise men on the horizon and stuff. You can see all of it. That was just super pretty, and it had no reason.
That's another thing that was so disappointing about this movie.
Just
like
random, just
like
spots
so
where you're
many
like, what the
scenes and visionaries that are just like extraordinary looking.
Yeah.
It's like you're capable of this.
Yeah, like
more of this.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. Is like that's gonna be the next renaissance of comedy. Is like being just incorporating more visual comedy. You know what I mean? Like using the camera for comedy. I feel like Edgar Wright is really good at that. It's Scott Pilgrim, Shaun of the Dead.
Sure.
He's so good at using the camera to like push the jokes further than they ever could have gone with just simple writing. And I think that's where this movie lacks.
And seeing stuff behind the protagonist that even the protagonist doesn't see. Stuff like that.
Because, I mean, you look,
or before he sees it.
Yeah, I mean, you just look 10 years down the line and you have a movie like Hot Shots that is the same. I mean, in as far as you want to talk about the style of comedy goes, it's pretty much the same, but, it's dealing with war movies, which are more prevalent, and it's dealing with, a more straightforward, subject in general. So, sorry for the beep. So, you're going to hear, just more straightforward jokes in a movie like Hot Shots than you would in a movie like Life of Brian. But at the same time, Hot Shots so much with background, foreground, whatever it needs to. It has so much more going on than just the story. And I do think that's where kind of Life of Brian does kind of, I don't want to say fail or anything, because this movie is still really good, but it does kind of like,
I'll tell you what, the biggest...
It may feel like it limps to the barn in a few ways, because the camera is so still, and you almost sometimes feel like you're stuck in a scene with someone. You're like, let's move on, or you want to pan somewhere or something, and it's just a dead camera sitting still, and you just watch people argue about nonsense sometimes in this movie. And I think it could have done better with having more dynamic camera movement and stuff like that. But yeah,
I think the criticism of this movie kind of like is the same kind of criticism you would give a movie like Airplane. Like we talked about that before. I mean, it came out in 1979, right?
literally the year before.
Yeah, and we're almost a half a century from the time this movie's made, and so attitudes, especially about like religion and things like that, and what was taboo and what was not, is completely different than what it was back then. And so we have to, I think give it somewhat of break for being one of the groundbreakers of delving into this subject matter. But at the same token, going back and watching any older film, like, there's like a good movies are good movies. Like a movie like Casablanca, which came out in the 40s, is always going to be a good movie. But most of the stuff that came out in that era is just unwatchable to me. I don't understand the dialect. I don't understand, the feel and everything. And,
and
it's laboring.
It's based outside of realism.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, this movie really feels dated, super dated. I mean, and the Holy Grail doesn't, but this one does. And I just think it's just because the Holy Grail is what it is. It's finite, but attitudes towards religion are constantly be changing. So I think there was probably a time when this movie was like just forgotten, and it's like it comes back. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just to remind people of where we've come.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was coming from when I was saying that I think this movie could get made now, is I feel like there's more anti-Christians now than there ever was. Like, people who are vehemently just strictly against Christianity. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's more people like that now, and so I feel like in that regard, it wouldn't be getting made by Warner Brothers Studios. It would not be getting made by Warner Brothers or 20th Century or Sony, but, would A24? No, A24 wouldn't do it either, but, like, I don't know. I feel like this movie could very easily be made if it were written correctly. Yeah. Or written with some type of care.
I think this movie, like, really didn't make fun of, like, Christianity or, that much at all. Just kind of like the origins of it, like, how easy it is for, well, there's so many things to talk about in that regard, because it's like, number one, it feels like the maker of this movie almost wanted to make the point that this region was total chaos and people fighting amongst themselves. There's no stability in the region whatsoever. That all the cults and religions and stuff were like sprouting up all about around the same time when the Romans were there, and everybody was mad at the Romans and fighting the Romans. And they bring it up to mention all the good things that the Romans brought. They brought stability. They brought the aqueducts. They brought all this stuff. And it's like, and they brought order, and they're keeping, and even throughout the movie, like, these little factions and stuff are fighting with each other, and the Roman guards are just all like sitting around like, here we go again. We got to watch this stuff again. Why are we even here? That kind of deal. So I thought that was a pretty bold statement. I don't think anybody ever looked at like a anarchy. Like in a comedy movie, look at the Roman Empire as a.
I do want to stop you for just 1 second. We do need to take a break before we get cut off on the camera. So hold that thought. We're talking about the anarchic society, talking about the problems they have with society, although society seems like it's doing just fine. But we're going to come back in just 1 second, and we're going to finish our thoughts and keep moving on. So hold that thought. 1 sec. We're back from our little break. When we left off, Dad was making a mention of how the People's Front of Judea were in a meeting, and they were trying to have basically anarchist-esque dialogue about how they felt the society was going, and how they felt that the Romans were treating them and treating society, and they didn't like it. Finish your thought, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, and, obviously the Romans took power by brute force, and then the area by force. But I just thought it was odd that the movie would like make
Like shit on a type
yeah,
of rebellious
the Israelites and in Judea and all of that, like they were just the ones that were insane and couldn't get it together, and the Romans being the voice of reason that came in to try to clean things up. I just found that amusing because I know it was done ironically to some degree, but there was some truth in it as well. I mean, it wasn't all bad that they brought to the region, and then I thought that was one of the biggest points of the movie. That's all.
No, yeah, I agree. I mean, and if you're not aware of the scene and you haven't seen the movie, basically, there's a they basically refer to themselves as terrorists later on in the movie. They openly refer to themselves as terrorists, but they are upset with the Romans and how they're treating them, treating their society, and treating their land, and so they're talking through, well, what have the Romans ever done for us? And one of the members in a mask chimes in and he goes, well, the aqueducts. And he's like, okay, well, other than the aqueducts, what have they done? And somebody goes, education, roads. And he goes, okay, well, other than the aqueduct, education, and roads, what have the Romans done for us? And this keeps
security, order.
Yeah, it just keeps going on until like they get to the basic fundamentals of like human life. And it's like, okay, other than this, and this, what have the Romans ever done for us?
But it wasn't just that scene too. It was all throughout the movie that like every time a Roman was around, just whatever the Judean people were doing or the Israeli,
it was made out to be absurd.
They're just ridiculous to anybody with any sense of reason or education.
So what we're trying to say is Monty Python is severely anti-Semitic. Yeah, I'm just joking. The one scene where they're stoning, like after they leave the procession where Jesus is speaking, and they go to the stoning, and they are like, why are women not allowed at the stonings? Because the mom had commented on not wanting to wear a fake beard. And it's like, oh, well, it's written. That's why. I thought that was really funny. And then just the whole stoning scene in general, there's like, anyone saying Jehovah is committing blasphemy and should be stoned. And so they start stoning the person that is crucifying the other person for having said
the leader there that's sanctioning the stoning gets stoned because
even
he
a
breaks
person
the
that's
rule.
there for the stoning speaks Jehovah's name and gets stoned for it. That was awesome. I love that.
Well, I just thought like all the hypocrisy there with like scripture and stuff, like taking it literally.
Yeah.
Was the good point that it made there. Yeah,
I do agree with that. A lot of those points where it's like taking what he just said, where it's taking it out literally and, kind of putting up a mirror to the people who do take Christianity or any religion for that matter in a very literal, direct sense, just kind of paints them to be out kind of like a dumbass.
I mean, beyond that, I don't know what you really...
Not to say that that's, we agree or anything, but,
I mean, beyond the obvious points of like having your favorite scenes and what you think is funny, and just pointing out the constant irony and hypocrisy of like, scripture and the basis of like pretty much all the major religions right there at one place. They all sprawled out in the same region, roughly the same time and stuff. And you could go and mention everyone individually, but they just do a good job. I think it's a good fun watch.
I do.
But aside from that, I mean, aside from talking about favorite scenes and stuff, I don't know what else this movie really says other than it's like, good job. Thanks for setting the bar.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're not lying at all. I mean, this movie offers close to none in substance aside from anything that it has to say about religion socially or religion philosophically or religion, just how people have a relationship with their own religions and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. This movie dates itself too with how it treats women.
Yeah.
It dates itself really bad with the slurs in the movie as well.
I mean, I think they were just playing along to the time period.
Well, the only time they say slurs is when Eric Idle's character, not Eric Idle, the guy who plays Brian, is trying to say to everyone or he's trying to say to his mom, he's like, "No, I'm a Jew, I'm Jewish," and he says a bunch of Jewish slurs in order to be like, "No,
I forgot about that." Yeah.
And
okay.
Then his mom is like, all these boys want to do is talk about sex, 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 and then goes to get on her knees.
Oh yeah.
In front of the Roman,
the
guard, whatever they're called. That was really funny. The irony of that scene was awesome. I really enjoyed that. I'm just gonna power through 5 minute notes right now. I have the guy that couldn't get the ring off the finger, so he just shoved the whole arm in his cloak was fucking hilarious to me. I have I talked about the transgender commentary, how I wasn't really expecting it. I have him getting into the group was really funny. It's like, oh, you gotta really hate the Romans to get into this group. How much do you hate him? A lot. Right then, you're in. That was it was so funny.
That one scene.
All the timing is awesome.
It was a funny scene though, the one that you referenced, because there were 2 different factions going to kidnap Pilate's wife. And so they both successfully made their way into the castle and had stumbled across each other, sneaking through the castle, trying to get to the queen. And then Brian was with one of the groups, and it was 9 people all together in there.
We have to fight against our common enemy. And they all go, the Judean People's Front.
Yeah, they couldn't agree on working together.
They were fighting about
to get back at the Romans. So they end up basically the whole group massacring each other and all killing each other except for Brian himself, the only one that had any voice of reason. I thought that was particularly funny.
I thought it was so good.
I mean, and you laugh all you want, but that shit's still going on today.
Yeah, I mean, Family Guy made a joke to it too. It was like, hi, I have no reason to hate you or anything about you. And it's like, hi, I also have no reason to hate you or anything you do. And then a random guy walks up and he goes, hey, did you hear about that magic Baby from Bethlehem? And then all 3 of them start stabbing each other violently until they're all dead. Yeah, that's what it feels like. Hyperbole. Yeah, I was gonna say, I kind of that's what it feels like sometimes. That's very obviously hyperbole, but yeah.
How quickly you get to that?
It's hyperbole, and it seems so absurd.
But you know exactly what they mean.
Exactly. So, my next note says just the graffiti, doing graffiti in oil paint. Number 1 is hilarious. Doing graffiti and then having a guard catch you and be a grammar Nazi is hilarious. And then having them catch you doing oil paint graffiti and then forcing them to make you do it, and then you getting caught subsequently from having done something that they told you to do and getting persecuted basically.
What do you remember? I don't remember what exactly he wrote on there. What
Romans go away.
Romans go away.
But he had written it wrong, and so the guard and the centurion makes him rewrite the whole sentence, and then is like
humiliates him with his poor grammar and makes him write it over.
Makes him write Romani ite domum, and he's like pinching his ear, is about to kill him, and he's just like, what is the plural of Romani? And it's like, no, possessive plural.
That scene drags on a long time too, but that's actually funny.
I will agree. If you have the patience for grammar humor, I would, because I don't.
Well,
I know a lot of people. I probably don't.
well, here's the
I
thing.
don't disagree with you.
It's just on grammar Nazis, a joke on
Yeah,
them
yeah,
too,
yeah,
in
yeah.
general, because what's so funny about this scene is basically a Roman guard is catching a guy
Doing
writing
crime.
graffiti on
It
the
forces him to do said crime in order to humiliate him
writing the graffiti on the uh
on like a religious, not a religious, but
no,
like
it's
a
Pilate's
yeah,
palace.
yeah, his palace.
And he catches him doing it. Doesn't make him stop, but makes him write it 100 times. That's so
And then it turns
funny.
around and it becomes a positive thing for him to his like rebel faction because he's done it 100 times.
Yeah, this guy's great, and
He wrote it in 10-foot letters, like
Well, this guy's bold. He must be the son of
Yeah.
all these signs.
Yeah,
and then all
this
the
guy's
signs.
insane,
Yeah, the signs I thought were like really damning to like the Old Testament and the Jewish religion. Like they're just signs that make no sense how they're connected to the thing that they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
So even the Jewish religion, who never gets made fun of,
Yeah.
they finally get their comeuppance. I apologize myself.
On
that note,
yeah, I enjoyed the guy that was in the jail who was supposed to be a caricature for people who like can't always have something worse going on in their life than you do. Like, oh, you're just getting stoned to death. Oh, you're so lucky. You're just getting stoned to death. They chain me up every day and night. They let me down for 20 minutes and they put me back up. You're getting it off easy. Hey, guards.
Crucifixion, eh?
Yeah.
Lucky
Oh,
you.
yeah, lucky you.
What do I get to be treated with?
Oh, no, someone. Alrighty. Well, one of my roommates just connected to the downstairs TV, I'm guessing. So that's fun. Appreciate that, whoever did that.
There's nothing better than live TV.
Yeah, man. Nothing will get you, nothing is better for your YouTube channel than copyrighted material off of network television. Nothing is better for you, like your copyright odds.
This has been such a fun episode.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, last time we did Clerks, right? And that was a great episode. And I feel like Airplane was fun. That's been the only 3. We've only ever done 3 comedies. And I did kind of feel like we were getting stagnant with the amount of dramas and stuff that was going on. At a certain point, I feel like I'm like being too serious. And that's not me at all. And I'm starting to feel like I'm joking too much about these really serious movies.
Mm-hmm.
I have like too much like joking commentary about these movies that are talking about like super serious things. I probably should pepper more comedy into like my stuff. But at the same time, we're finding new films.
That's right.
Not finding new fucking, finding new shitters.
Things to feel guilty about.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Like this movie is funny and I'm not taking anything away from this movie. Like, I love it. I don't love it. I liked it a lot. It was funny. But I don't think it's a great movie. By any means.
I don't think they went to it with the idea. I don't think they ever did anything.
Yeah.
I will say there's, for anyone that's a big Monty Python fan, and I just wanted to mention this to some of your younger guys who may not be aware of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have the whole cast in it, but it's got John Cleese, Eric Idle, Michael Palin are all in the movie. It's called A Fish Called Wanda. It's got Kevin Kline and Jamie Lee Curtis from the Halloween movies, which is her best role of her life. And though I haven't seen what she won that I've seen. I haven't seen everything.
She did just win Best Supporting for Everything Everywhere. So I don't know that it's her greatest.
That's probably my next one that I'm gonna watch.
Probably should.
But I just want A Fish Called Wanda, one of my favorite comedy movies. Very intelligent, great story, very fun, very up to date. Even though the movie was made like late 80s, early 90s, it's got like a good feel to it. I think people would enjoy that if they're a Monty Python fan. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Might show up on self tapes. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We should probably move on though, because I think we have sat on this one part of the movie for kind of long. But I think that's a really good point though, or that's a good suggestion. So yeah, if you like this one or any Monty Python, go check that out. I love the gourd shoe, non-shoe collecting of the shoe sentiment. The kind of, it shows secularism like within a certain religion. That's what that means, right? Secular.
Well, like rules, yeah.
Yeah, like certain that's what it means. Like denominations, or like to show how denominations interpret the Bible. That's what I mean to say. Like how different denominations interpret Bible verses, and
there's
they have different values.
And it's literally happening right there in real time in front of your face.
No, the guard is the way. And it's like, no, the shoe is it's a symbolism for we have to collect all the shoes. And it's like, no, the one shoe means we have to walk with one shoe. And it's like,
no, beautiful. No, it shouldn't be taken literally. It
was beautiful. It was really, that was probably the best written. That and what have the Romans ever done for us? Those are the two best written scenes in this movie.
And Cleese's part, Cleese is basically acting as like the Judean leader, like in all this, and the only thing he's looking at Brian for is like, how can we use him? It's like the situation constantly changes. I mean, that's one thing I noticed that in the Bible, as the situation changes, there's like, let's bide our time with Jesus. Right now, he's popular. Let's, let him, keep walking amongst the people and let him put his own foot in his mouth.
Yeah.
And in the movie with Brian, they kind of basically did the same thing. And it's like, oh, we can use him as a martyr. Let's get rid of him, and then we can just use his death for our benefit. You know what I mean? It's like the same thing. And they're like, you don't have to keep talking about it to explain the irony and everything with it.
The irony of them killing 140 Jewish people on Passover as a celebration.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little too on the nose. I feel like a little bit, but I thought it was still ironically funny. But then I have this movie drags, hardly any cuts, set pieces are too much, too long, whatever. Blah, blah, blah. I have a note that says I did not understand the Roger/Roderick joke. Did you? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Roger Roderick.
If you don't, it's fine. We can move past it.
Nah, sorry. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, I don't even know what that's in reference to. I made a comment. You'll see it on this past Monday's episode. There is, without a doubt, every single one of these that I will have one note that I do not remember what it's in reference to because I've not given myself enough context to like reference it. Just that's the one for this one. Don't know about the Roger Roderick joke anymore, but that was one of them. I have this note that says the Igor-looking guard snapped into regular convo when everyone else leaves. That one guard that looked like he was genetically misformed or malformed or something like that. Like when the guard, the centurion leaves, and they just snap back into conversation. Yeah. So I was just telling him the other day that and it's nothing more than that. I feel like that's where they use editing and the camera work in the best possible way. Exit frame, he cuts back into talking like a normal person, and before it's given any type of context at all, you're already moving past it. It's like, oh, he's just lying about being stupid. And I feel like that's so much funnier than all this droning on that constantly happens in this movie. That's more funny than the constant droning that this movie tends to.
You can thank Terry Jones for that.
Probably. Yeah.
I mean, of all the well, I don't know how much you know about Monty Python.
I don't.
Okay. For any seasoned Monty Python fans, he's probably one of the most dry and
talky stuff.
Yeah.
Probably got a theater background or something like that. Has to. But
he's more of the intellectual in the group.
Yeah.
And and he has a hard time I'd say our criticism of Monty Python as a group is let's just move on. Each individual. Please, I give a 10. No.
Yeah. And my next thing was their announcement. Their whole announcement to him is like, "Thank you so much for being our martyr," and like it like basically explaining to him that he's going to be the martyr, and then his girlfriend coming up and be like, "Hey, they told me what was happening. You're so cool for doing this." Like, and he's like, "Please help me."
Yeah, there's nobody there.
Yeah.
All any of these people have to do is just
Like
tie down.
literally get him down. And it's the funniest thing. Because then the Romans got scared off by the Judean people front, and then the Judean people front kills themselves because they're a suicide squad, quote unquote, and they kill themselves. And
that's just the misinterpretation.
and then after they tell him that he's going to be the martyr, they start singing, "Oh, he's a jolly good fellow."
They said, well, we should do something more, and they turn around and sing "He's a jolly good fellow." That's fantastic. Oh no.
Oh my god. And then you know, I don't even have to talk about it. Just go look it up if you haven't seen it. Always look on the bright side of life, while they're all crucified on the crosses and everything is just so funny. I you know, it speaks for itself. I don't need to tell you how funny that is, of people being like religiously persecuted and being like, always look on the bright side, and it's just the funniest thing.
Yep. It's worth it. If you don't even watch this movie, go on YouTube and find the ending of The Life of Brian and watch that. It speaks for itself.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's so ironic, just so iconic, and you know, speaks for itself. But I really genuinely, I mean, that's all this movie needs.
I do
to
too.
talk about.
Yeah, it was a good movie. It was a good laugh. Should have watched it 30 years ago. It probably would have been even better at that point. But that's the thing. It's not fair that these movies, we've seen so many things inspired by it, come after it, and then you go back and watch this. I don't think it's really fair. But
yeah.
at the same token, you can't watch everything. So
true. I do find myself feeling the same way sometimes when you see a movie that has been inspired by so many, or like you've seen so many things that are inspired by a certain movie, and then it just like it's not as good as you think it may be or may have been, you know, if you had seen it at a different point in your life. And yeah, I don't know. But I agree with you on that. I feel like I may have felt differently if I had just had a different time to see this movie. But nevertheless, what is your rating? Because we're on the list now. If you didn't pick up, if you're on audio, we're on the list now. What would you say you would give this?
The rating is so good in this movie. I don't care what you think of this movie. The ending, I'm sorry, the rating. The ending of the movie is so good. It gives it an extra point. So I would probably do like a 5. With the ending, it comes to a 6. So that's what I'm going to go.
6?
Yeah.
Same. I'm doing 6 as well. It's going to be coming at 12. So that puts it right underneath Casino Royale, right above 65. For that 16th, that coveted 16th out of 17 spot. I think that's fair.
65.
Yeah, that movie is, yeah, nobody knows about that movie.
It's better than Casino Royale.
No.
We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I did not like Casino Royale, but I don't know about that.
I mean, just production value, it might be.
Yeah, production value alone, I think it deserves the 0.5 over. But yeah, that was Life of Brian. Really
keep your eye open for the Greg and Jeff Present the Hi Hat podcast.
Should be coming out next Sunday. I can look up
a week from today.
Yeah, 7 days from now. So it's 31 days in March. Tomorrow's the 29th. Monday's the 30th. No, it's Tuesday the 30th. Wednesday is the 31st. So June the 1st is Thursday. June the 2nd is Friday. June the 3rd is Saturday. So June the 4th.
June the 4th be with you.
June the 4th be with you. That's when you'll get the first episode of Greg and Jeff.
And hopefully the last.
Give the high. You tune in tomorrow the May the 29th, this Memorial Day. So 4 days from when you're seeing this. 4 days in the past. This past Monday.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
This past Monday, go watch the first episode of Self Tapes. It was The Wrestler. I was very tired. But I feel like it's one of the more analytical episodes of Finding New Films.
Analytical?
Analytical.
Okay.
Episodes of Finding New Films there's ever been. So that was fun. I also love pro wrestling. So if that would draw your ire, don't watch that. But yeah. Nevertheless, we will be back next week. I think with La La Land, at this point, I probably should just stop announcing the next episode because I have no clue. I think it's La La Land, but we'll see. Stuff happens. So
I think what you do is start having people on and just ask them if they've seen a certain movie and whether they've seen it or not, talk about it.
There you go. No, I like the idea of it being fresh in the head. But yeah, go watch Self Tapes. You'll see that it has a different logo than this show, and it's gonna be episode number 1. So that should be hopefully easy for you guys to notice. But if you can't figure that out, that's why. But then next Sunday, June the 4th, look out, first episode of Greg and Jeff Give the Hi-Hat. Should be fun. Should be
just like old times.
Yep, just like old times. But we're going to sign off now. I've been Hunter Harris. Please like, subscribe to this channel. Go follow us on Instagram. Go follow Dad on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram.
Like us on Spotify.
Yep, follow us on Spotify. Rate our podcast if you would be so nice. Rate us on Apple Music. Whatever you have. Doesn't really matter. Just do the thing. You know what that means.
Doing the thing. That's what Biden says.
Yeah.
Just doing the thing.
Yeah, my favorite guy.
All right.
Alrighty. Anyway, love you guys. Not really, but love you. Bye.